Steve, welcome.
Hi, Derek.
We had just begun to discuss something. You kind of dropped a bombshell at the end of our last program with only a minute to go, which is, as far as show business is concerned, that's great to leave people wanting more. A giant flown aboard an AC-130 that was discovered in Iraq or Afghanistan?
Afghanistan.
So flown out of Bagram Air Force Base in Afghanistan after taking out a U.S. Special
Operations team. And fascinating, every time we do a Skywatch together or do a radio program together, people from all over the world who have been waiting to tell their story contact me. Now, why is this important? It's important because in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, well, we're talking 2,000 or 3,000 witnesses. When we do the documentary series, it's amazing. We go with one specific thought or plan, always before us, and God just basically, in his mercy and grace, brings in all of these chance meetings. So Rome, all roads lead to Rome because Rome's eyes are everywhere. Mm-hmm. They see everything. Well, what the important part of True Legends, the series, especially the second one, by the way, I consider it, and I think the first was good. This one's 10 times better. There's 10 times more information. We had double cinematographers because of the grace of, a benefactor. We were able to do what we couldn't do in the first one. And as I said, we're funded, ladies and gentlemen, by the people that believe in what we're doing. And here it is. I jokingly said it's David's sling. We're really, coming up against the giants. And I told people, faith isn't when God puts you out on a branch, and you're out there and you look down below you and you can go back to the trunk. Faith is when, in God's world, you heard it, when he cuts the branch off, the branch is suspended and the tree falls over. And it's kind of like, crossing the Nile, when it's flowing in season, or the Jordan. It's always nice when God parts the Red Sea.
Sure.
So why this is critical in True Legends, a series, is because we're seeing the most open revelation of the covered up history of the world, covered up entities, and the idea now that there is so much pronouncements of the alien God coming out of Rome. The Mount Graham is interesting, intersection of ley lines. Second is, I believe, Tom, second holiest mountain.
Well, and also, by the way, before we get away from this pilot, I want people to know that in this documentary, you actually interview the pilot that flew the cargo plane, and then worked with an artist. I remember seeing a drawing that you had made by one of your artists.
Well, let me say this, without giving anybody up for reasons. I had an incredible sketch artist do the, if you will, the best description given to me of the dead giant. By the way, those who have purchased my book, Long Walkers, Skywatch has had specials. That cover is the artist's interpretation of the blow-by-blow account that was given by the AC-130 pilot. The AC-130 pilot basically flew in and out of Bagram. He said, interestingly enough, Steve, everybody was being allowed out except me. And obviously, he's alive because he has a Bible-believing mother, God bless you, and he has people praying for his safety. So we brought him into Bozeman, Montana, into our small studio there, and we interviewed him. Obviously, he's in silhouette. But the story he tells was immediately validated to me by a hunter-killer team leader who was in Afghanistan and Iraq, but Afghanistan at the same time. So the pilot is talking to us about the giant, 10 to 12 feet. He said it weighed 1,500 pounds, the 6 fingers, 6 toes. And I withhold certain information, but you can't separate the smell of the giant. Even those who go out after Yeti or Sasquatch, the abominable snowman, whatever you want to call, Bigfoot. But even in the findings that we're following all over the world, the presence of stargates, giants, and cryptozoological creatures, things that not only go bump in the night, but basically are the things nightmares are composed of, are always found together. So the pilot gets a hold of me, Derek, and this was contemporary. It was in 2005. It was on Coast to Coast. he sent me an email, which I can't say word for word because he said, I used to think you were blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And, the blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Everybody knows what words fit that, that blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And he said, until, okay? And then I thought, this is cool. Until I was tasked and ordered to fly one out. Now here's why. Well, why didn't he take pictures? The Giant was accompanied by intelligence agents, okay? And he said, and he gave us the description of what they look like, and which people can get on this True Legends of series, The bottom line is that the intelligence, and he made them give up their phones. They made them to give up all cameras. They had to sign their national security letters, Now, he's out of the Air Force now, okay? But one of the prayers I had is, oh, Lord, please don't let him be murdered, assassinated, or, taken out because of this revelation. And I've actually read the Letter on the Air, and it's composed. If people want to get the background of just that scene, it's one thing to read it, it's nothing to see him on camera. When I brought up the Navajo elders singing, it's singing, meaning I guess they sing kind of chant, and that's one of the hardest languages in the world to learn. Right. It was obviously used during World War II.
Right, to fool the Japanese. Right.
To fool the Japanese. Well, they can fool the Japanese, sure fool me. Me trying to speak Navajo, it would be like a third grader trying to pronounce graduate level physics, Not going to happen. The point is that with this encounter, by the way, he was with a Judge Adjutant General, a JAG, and when she heard that, she flipped out. She said, I can't take this. She went over and hit the bar and had a double, okay? And it freaked my friend the pilot out, It freaked my friend the pilot out so much. But what was fascinating is there's no way the native elder could have known that. Just like when we're in Rome, okay? When we're in Rome, Tim meets with a really famous illuminist. And what people are going to find out is the whole alien narrative tracks right back to the Vatican, with confirming they got this on camera, and the whole presentation of all evidence will be controlled by them, so they can say, these are the gods. I was sharing with Tom, his wife, and my friend this morning at breakfast about how I was given a drawing by a very high-ranking military guy. The guy's a beautiful artist, really good. And in that, it looked exactly like the aliens portrayed in Childhood's End that Hollywood just produced. There's a series on Netflix. Now, what's the chance of that? By the way, I received that almost close to 7 years ago, okay? And the 7 real years, not that, in my world, that means last month was really last year, but, because I just live in the event to event. But what was most fascinating is it matched the description to a T,
Well, and Steve, let me jump in here if I can. Our research, independent of yours, absolutely confirmed what you're talking about. We went to the academic level. We went to the Navajo Nation. We talked to one of the guys that writes the books that they're using in their school. He's a professor. He's a third-generation medicine man. They almost look at, like if you were telling this story, they almost look at this like, well, sure, yeah, right.
So what?
Because they're outside of our media system. They're outside of our propaganda tools. They remain very independent from us. But furthermore, what they remind us of is that early on in American history, through the 1800s, the 1900s, universities all across the United States were digging up the bones of the giants and were putting them on display. I was on Jim Baker's show the other day. I took 21 newspaper clippings with me of the giants, and the small ones were 7, 8, 9 feet. The big ones were 12, 14. One of them was 16 foot tall. At that time, the 1900s, they said it's the biggest human skull ever discovered, and they were right where the Indians told them they were. A flood came, swept their bones under the hills of the valley. All the ancient texts say that in the Middle East, but the American Indians say the same thing here. But what you said earlier is also something that people really need to wrap their mind around. They not only came once before, the gates not only opened once before, and that's discussed in the Bible, it's discussed in American history, it's discussed in Samaria, Egypt. Everybody knew this, right, as an ancient fact. The ancient Hebrew rabbis talk about it.
They all knew it.
But it's also biblical that the gates are going to open again. Isaiah, 13, open the gates, you ruler. This is a future thing. Giants are coming to fulfill my wrath. The book of Revelation, chapter 9, right? The gates underneath the Euphrates River open up. Angels are coming up out. And these are not good angels. These are wiping out huge portions of humanity. Another angel comes down. What does he do? He's got the key to the bottomless pit. And he opens, and this gate of the earth opens up, and this stuff starts coming up out of the earth. So again, I would just want to remind people that are watching this program, and they may hear us make a reference to, American Indian history or something like that, and they may be sitting there, well, who cares? We're Christians, right? What's this got to do with the Bible? It's got a lot to do, not just with the ancient scriptural text, but future.
And interestingly enough, one of the fascinating things is even the natives who are cannibals, I mean, everything, and they were, I'm talking the Incas weren't vegans, okay? And the thing is they ate everything and everyone. I know that sounds horrible. Well, it is horrible. But the point that I'm trying to make is that the official records absolutely even declare the point where God himself sent lightning bolts and a flaming angel to destroy the giants, okay? So when you're talking a 6-foot tall, but when you see the size of a 36-foot giant in true anatomical scale, you can understand that these cyclopean blocks and everything you see above ground, Derek, it's not a New Age term, as above, so below, because that's Ephesians 6, for we wrestle not against. They may have termed it that way and stolen it, but that's a reality.
Lord's Prayer. Yeah, Lord's Prayer. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
You got it. The fascinating thing, here's the ratio. 15%, it doesn't matter what megalithic site on what ley line, it's South America, Bulgaria, the Russians, it's the Chinese pyramids, whatever. What's amazing is the same people that built all of them it links back. It links back to this, the very thing. So the conquistadors, some of the stuff that was given to us was 580 years on a shelf. And make a swifter happy or a dust moth, but the point being, and it was at that specific time. Up until that time, no one had referred to it, and yet it's here. So I think the corollary that's taking place is that as Tom is in the desert Southwest, as he's at Mount Graham, and I'll tell you the other thing that we're finding out is the control of information from the unholy see, especially on the alien thing. They want to control every aspect of the argument, the evidence, and the outcome. And that's where we're at.